Okay, so that's enough from me today, at least at the beginning of this. Let's get on to the real good stuff, which is our speakers. And I'm very, very interested to see and listen to this talk. And the reason why is because we're going to be examining things from really an economic perspective. The next speaker has great experience working in the corporate sector, looking at a much wider lens as to how people in the market are thinking about recruitment and how in fact you build your recruitment process with those people in mind. So, without further ado, please put your hands together for Hans Mesters and Leonardo.
The problem is I normally have presentations that last for 2-3 hours, and now I have to do it in a kind of TED talk comprised 20-minute format, so wish me luck. At the end I have a small 3-minute clip, just to make sure in case you think I'm crazy because of my story, then the guy from the clip will kind of reinforce what I have been saying. Working within ABN AMRO Bank for 22 years, but never actually have become kind of a corporate identity. Always have kind of remained myself, being a southern guy from Holland, Limburg, with a lot of common sense, critical towards my environment, and especially from the angle of how you behave towards your fellow man. So trying to show that the things you have learned in your upbringing, that is actually the highest value you have, despite a corporate environment. Okay, on that happy note. I will not do the ABN pitch, I will only tell you that the Dutch banking landscape is kind of changing. We have this other cylinder called Ralph Hamers, the chief of ING, who says we basically are a IT company with a banking license. We have Rabobank, which is a different history and a different ballgame. And we in ABN AMRO Bank have chosen for sustainability as the core pillar of our strategy. And of course, it's exciting days now in sustainability land. If you look at the EU initiatives and global initiatives, so there's a lot of stuff to do there in terms of trying to improve the world. And I think that's the biggest connection, because we are here today, because what we see now is that because of our sustainability strategy, young people come to us and say, hey, you're a great company, you're trying to improve the world, we would love to work for you. Right? So this purpose statement is extremely important to have. It's maybe more important from a talent acquisition point of view than the actual sustainability strategy. You get access to talent. Couple of things, some trends, some macro developments, then something towards the identity economy. I think we're in the process of moving towards an identity-based economy, basically meaning people would like to work where there's a match between their core values and purpose and that what a company can offer, so very important. And then some findings, and of course the video clip I have explained already. From the macro point of view, we spent a lot of time, of course, assessing growth in our country and globally. This is not a very good sign. This is what they call the Purchase Managers Index, which means, what are the plans of the purchase managers, especially in industry? Are they buying a lot of raw materials? And this has proved to be a very reliable indicator for future growth. And as you see, this index is kind of declining. So that doesn't bode well for future economic growth. If you look at our country, our economists think we are heading for 1.6% economic growth this year and 0.9% for next year, which is not a lot. And what you see from a labor market perspective is kind of a unique situation where we have a relatively low economic growth, we have a lot of jobs outstanding, and we have low unemployment. So it could be the case now where the demographic trend becomes more important than the cycle, than the economic cycle. And we've never been there before. So will the economic growth of 0.9% next year, will that kind of increase the pool of unemployed people? We don't know. But a lot of companies, especially in my sector, I'm responsible for the business service sector, they can't find people anymore. So a little bit of increase in unemployment would be very positive for these companies. What you also see is there's a strong correlation between demographics and economic growth. And in the Western world, as I said, there is a demographic crisis. most extreme, I think, in Italy, Germany, and especially Japan. Japan, what you have to remember is that Japan is one of the few countries that can compensate the lower number of people available with increased productivity. In the Western world, unfortunately, despite all the goodies we have, like internet and mobile phones, there is no real increase in labor productivity. So we are facing a declining working population, a lacking productivity increase, so that means slower, lower economic growth, if you like it or not. Just to show you what that means, this is, let's say, the economic growth in the Netherlands in the years after the Second World War, when we spent a lot of money in rebuilding the country, basically. You see that the GDP growth, so the economic growth of the country is 4%, and the labor productivity was 3.96, almost 4% as well. That's amazing. It's never been achieved. If you look at the last, let's say, decades, it's 1.4% of labor productivity between 1991 and 2000, and most recently, it's only 0.5, which proves what I've been saying. We have all these technological gadgets, but it doesn't translate into economic growth. So anybody who has a clear understanding why this is, why the economic growth, productivity growth is lacking, you can win a Nobel Prize. So think about it, worthwhile. The thing that we are facing, and many other listed companies, is of course pressure from shareholders. And this is a very important shareholder. This is Mr. Larry Fink, one of the largest investors in the world. He's the CEO of BlackRock. He owns, I think, like 7-8% of ABN AMRO. And this guy puts pressure on the board and supervisory board of large companies that they should not only be doing maximizing shareholder wealth. I used to work for 7 years in an Anglo-Saxon investment environment as an asset manager. And the only month that I was maximizing shareholder. We call it in Amsterdam swimming. It's only about the money. Well, those days, ladies and gentlemen, are gone. And so we face a lot of pressure from our stakeholders to do something more than just making a profit. And the guy who is most advanced is Feike Siebersma. He's the CEO of DSM, and he already made this choice a long time ago. And the amazing thing about DSM is that they are able to do both. They have constructed a company with societal impact based on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, a few, and at the same time making a profit. And that's, of course, the big thing, the big problem. Right? You can have a sustainability-based strategy, but how can you make money with it? That's what we are facing. Okay. One of the issues I look at, and of course all of you, is the impact of technology on work. And this is an overview of all the different studies that have been published in the last 10, 15 years. And it goes all over the place. Nobody knows exactly what's happening. It all started in 2013, as you remember, by the study made by Osborne and Frey. They said that when technology continues to develop the way it develops now, we probably lose close to 47% of the current jobs. And that's not completely right. One of the things they said, well, bankers won't exist anymore, and accountants won't exist anymore. So that's not the way it happens. The way it happens is depicted on this Financial Times website, where you can put in a job, any job. I've chosen for a financial specialist. Turns out the financial specialist basically has like 93 activities in his work, and the assessment is that 20 of these 93 activities will be made redundant by automation. So it doesn't mean that a job disappears, it just means that the content becomes different. Sometimes the content changes so much that you need new competencies, and that's your business. One of the things that companies are facing, big time, and I see that in my company, is that the environment is kind of changing at a very high rate. They call it an exponential rate. And the blue line shows the degree to which companies can adjust to the environment. And what you see is that it's a losing battle. The gap between the environment changing and what companies can do is only getting bigger. So I think we are in the process of what they call a post-institutional world. We will end up in companies that are smaller, where the human factor becomes determined, and actually it's going to be a much nicer way of working. Something I have to share with you in terms of proof is the anthropologist Mr. Dunbar. Mr. Dunbar did a lot of research on how people live together and work long time ago, prehistory and before, and he came up with the number 150. So that shows that in long time ago, people lived together with an extended family. Why 150? Because it has been proven that your brain is maximized to the number 150 when it comes to have personal relationships. You can't have a real deep personal relationship with more than 150 people. So I think we will end up at companies with a maximum size of 150, just to make sure this human connection is secured. And what you see, for example, in the whole agile way of thinking, what do you think is the size of one of the important things with agile? It's right. What is the size of the tribe? 150. So there's no coincidence. This is my favorite slide. This is the way I see a hierarchical organization. I, of course, work in a hierarchical organization. Ladies and gentlemen, this system is dead. They still think it works, but it's dead. So at the top you have the CEO, we call him the chief ID killer. And in his management team you have the VP of No, which is usually a woman. He would be on me, yeah? And then VP of status quo, VP of status quo. Then they have a director of paralysis by analysis. That's a McKinsey guy who jumped over the wall and is the most blue guy of all. And then they have a manager of new growth ideas, and of course they can't find anybody. And the nice thing is, doesn't matter what type of industry you show this, everybody recognizes this. If you want to make a quick calculation what the pain is in your environment, take this. The resistance to new ideas is a function of the number of employees to the power of the managerial levels. So you have a brief idea on how bad it is in your case. Now it's kind of stuck in this slide, I'm afraid. Oh, there we are. I learned a lot from startups. This is a startup. It's a startup from the Hague area, and they have a kind of evolutionary vision of how companies develop. To some extent also influenced by this important book by Frédéric Laloux, Reinventing Organization. Anybody familiar with the work of Laloux? Well, you should read it. It's a spiritual book, maybe too spiritual, because I tried to get hold of this guy to give a presentation, but he's in a Tibet cloister now, monastery. So he went too spiritual. But anyways, these guys say you start with a hierarchical organization, then you do some agile experimenting, that's where we are, and ING and many other companies, and then you are towards a completely self-organizing organization, which is difficult also in terms of size. How do you do self-organizing with 20,000 people? Difficult. But the end game, they say, is, let's say, the US movie industry. Yeah? So you start with a film script, you make sure you get money, funding, actors, director, cameras, and all stuff. So it's actually a big project organization. And when the movie is finished, the whole project organization kind of dissolves. And there's plenty of startups in Amsterdam, and also here, who work according to this, let's say, project independent contract type of setting. It's highly appealing for young people. And then there's something else. This is an important one. Of course, we get the nice thing about being in a large organization. There's all kinds of consultants who try to explain to you how the world looks like. This is from Barrett, and this is basically the Maslow pyramid that we're all familiar with. So the highest stage in our Maslow world for the older is self-actualization. You have a job where you can actually express yourself. But for the millennials, that's not the end. They have an additional Maslow pyramid on top of that. So the highest level in the millennial pyramid is, how can I use my talents to benefit the world? Right? That's also kind of an almost spiritual type of dimension. And in order to attract and especially keep millennials, you have to understand this. If you don't have a decent purpose statement, you're not going to come. A lot of the older guys, over 50, they say, well, you know, I'm 35, they have a mortgage and 2 kids, they become just like us. I don't know. What's even worse is that the generation after the millennials, the so-called generation Z, they're even worse. They're the Gretas, not one, but a whole lot of them. So if you think this will pass over, no, it's not. It's not. Okay, identity economics. A little bit of information on HR, the profession of HR. In the process of doing this, I kind of transformed myself from a banker to an HR professional. This is Dave Ulrich model. That was the basis for many HR departments in many companies, as you know. What you see is that the HR world has become much more complex. There's much more responsibilities, there's much more impact from IT, And I think the important part of this picture is that if you want to make a case to your senior management, you have to understand their language and you have to adopt analytic elements in your business case. So it's really sad, the way I look at it, that when HR becomes so important now, in this day and age, that they don't do the grab for power. Everything is about HR. HR is not a staff function anymore, it's a core competence. If you don't have the right people, you don't get them, you don't attract them, you're toast. So why don't you grab the power? Now the time is right. Another one is an explanation of the way DSM, this listed company by CEO Feike Sijbesma, how they operate. They made this decision 10 years ago. 10 years ago they asked themselves, okay, what do we want to do? Focus on profit only or do some societal impact stuff as well? And basically he says, when you're not making this choice and you only stick to profit, you will be out of business. So in his presentation to shareholders, he says, you will lose the respect and confidence of your shareholders if you don't make that move. Millennials won't come and work for you, and you will lose, that's the worst thing, you lose your license to operate. If you don't make that choice and stick to profit. Purpose, of course, is very important, and it's also difficult to have a definition. This is a definition I kind of like. What you see with companies that have a high discipline when it comes to purpose is that they make a purpose statement, in our case, building a better bank for generations to come. You won't be able to have 5 years on that one. But the thing is, all the investments you make have to fit the purpose statement. So the purpose statement becomes a guiding principle for everything you do. And if you deviate with your decisions from your purpose statement, the people will see that. People internally, those people actually. This is a nice matrix that I only understand now. It's an older matrix, 2014, made by Joey Ryman. Joey Ryman is one of the main thinkers on the concept of purpose. And he basically says you have one axis that it's about operational excellence, and the other one is about purpose. But the other one, purpose, you can also read as being a human-centric organization, being a warm organization. So this, of course, is a blue world, operational excellence. It's analytical. And this is a warm human world. And what you see, you first need to have your house in order on the operational excellence part. It's exactly the phase where we are as a bank. We need to have our house in order from an operational excellence point of view. Only then you can invest in the top parts of the matrix. And this is a difficult one. Very difficult. Now, this is what I said. So we're on the path towards identity economics. Employees look for jobs that match their values, norms, and ideas regarding purpose. And it's important information you can use, of course, as a recruiter, also in the way you communicate about your company. And the scary thing about this day and age is, for example, anybody like to move the circle? There's extreme transparency. In the old days, 10 years ago, when we had a fight in our board of directors or supervisory board, nobody knew about it. Now when it happens, it's in the newspapers the day after. So it also creates a lot of discipline, this transparency. I love the transparency. There's no place to hide. My favorite slide. Now I get older, I become more a cultural anthropologist, sociologist. Anybody familiar with the work of Geert Hofstede? He's a Dutch scientist. He worked for IBM. He worked with many different cultures, many different people, different programs for the Chinese, Americans, Italians, Germans, Dutch. And he kind of uses 6 variables to describe a culture. And the interesting thing about Dutch, getting to know the Dutch, we are characterized by 2 variables. We are low power distance, that means we don't like hierarchy, and we are feminine, that means caring, so we like to look after each other. So we share these values with Scandinavian countries. And the irony is that the large companies we have constructed over the years, Unilever, Shell, ABN, etc., they of course have the opposite values. They are masculine and hierarchical. So all these companies are in the process to trying to transform themselves to values that are closer to the Dutch society. And that's a painful process and also a very difficult process. How do you change the mindset of people who have been institutionally programmed over the last 25 years. It's very good. If we don't get it right, it's over, it's game over. So this is important to do. And the other thing I would like to share with you, if you agree with me that we are in this process towards a post-institutional world, and you ask yourself, what are the best variables to make this happen? It's this. Feminine values, low power resistance. So I have a lot of confidence in the Dutch model for the future. And the interesting thing is that we share this model, these cultural features, with Scandinavian countries. And if you look at the world competitive rankings, who is in the top 10 of most competitive countries over the last 10, 15 years? Denmark, Norway, Netherlands, Finland, these values. So every time people say, oh, what's the future of Holland? You become a kind of a destination for Chinese tourists, and that's about it. It's not true. We have a mission. Okay. Then, I hope it still works. Oh, yeah. Well, this is a bit of a confronting slide. So I won't spend too much time about it. But if you talk about leadership, it's the third part of the triangle that kind of determines everything. The triangle consists of culture, structure, and leadership. We talked about culture and structure, now it's about leadership. So what I learned from the army is a question I'm going to ask you. What is your company fragging ratio? And you ask yourself, what the heck is that? Well, it's a new HR metric. It works like this. In the Vietnam War, 200 officers were killed by their own men because they threw a grenade in the tent when he was sleeping. You ask yourself, okay, so, well, how do you deal with your bad apples in your company? How many, if they weren't CEOs of bosses of the department, but they were an officer having a combat unit, were they at risk of soldiers throwing a grenade in their tent? That's interesting to think about. Personally, I know a couple of guys where I would throw 2 grenades in the tent just to make sure in case the first one doesn't go off. So think about it, what is the HR fragging ratio of your leaders? Same thing, confrontational, young guy killed in the Iraq war, 19 years old, he threw himself on a grenade to save his friends. Here is his obituary of his young life. He got the highest medal, the Congressional Medal of Honor. But the last sentence is interesting. What was his mindset? Caring more for others than himself. How many people heading your organization have this mindset that you need in the 21st century? How many? 0. Right? Good. Just a brief thing on how we use recruitment. We use gaming in recruitment because we have an enormous recruitment bias problem, so we tend to hire the same people that we already employ. So what we did, we kind of experimented with gaming in the recruitment process, and out of the 21 persons that came okay through the recruitment process by using the gaming exercise, we went to their CVs, and it turned out that 7 out of these 21 we would never have invited for an interview based on their CVs. So if you think about reducing recruitment bias, increasing diversity, gaming might be a very interesting instrument for you as well. And to conclude, and maybe I'm a bit longer, so my apologies, but if you think I'm crazy, this is an interesting movie that will kind of reinforce what I have been saying.
I'm going to end with the following. The most important thing for speed for your company and your service is your internal culture. The number one thing that will make your company go fast is continuity and lack of politics, which means we are at the dawn of the era where emotional intelligence is about to become the single most important trade. That skills through technology growth will continue on a daily basis to be commoditized. But your emotional capabilities to interact with others will become a very, very important trade. I highly recommend. How many people here have a company with more than 10 people? Raise your hand. I highly, highly, highly recommend that if you take anything away from my talk, fuck voice, fucking arbitrage, take this one thing away from me. you better go home and audit every single employee you have, and you better figure out which employee makes the other employees miserable. I don't give a shit if it's your #1 salesperson, your best fucking developer, or your co-founder. Cancer spreads. With cancer and politics comes lack of speed. Your company will get much slower because people are sitting around to have meetings with other individuals. Your company will get slow in a world where the speed of product output, features, and how you interact with your customers has never been greater. So I implore a tech-centric, financial-centric, type A room like this to go home and get really in tune with their fucking feelings. In my company, the #2 person is not the CFO or the CEO, the COO, excuse me. The #2 person after me is Claude Silver. She is the Chief Heart Officer. She's the head of HR, call it what you want. It is no question the biggest variable to our success. It has never, and I mean ever, been more important for you to care about the internal feelings, culture. Let me tell you how you do not build culture. You do not build culture by having free snacks in your cafeteria. Let me tell you how you do not build culture. You do not build culture by having a foosball table or open seating. You build culture by actually talking to people one by one and understanding what they care about. And what you will learn is some people want money, and some people want time with their family, and some people want title, and some people want creativity, and it is your job. How many people are the CEO of the company? It is your job to know every single one of those things about every single person, every single day. Because 23-year-old Sally at 27 wants different shit. 31-year-old Charlie at 34 wants different shit. It is time that this ecosystem starts paying attention to the human elements that will drive our businesses to the next level. This is a conversation we are not having, and is the conversation in the next decade. Thank you.
Thank you. That was my presentation. So a bit over time, apologies, but not that high for so below 15 minutes. So cool.
Okay.